Hello?
Matt.
Yes.
Jon Nelson here in Atlanta.
How are you, John?
Doing all right, man.
Good. Good to hear your voice.
Yeah. Can I borrow you for a little bit?
Yeah, not a problem.
All right. What I'm going to do is, like we've done tape stuff in the past, I'm going to cut a fake intro, and then I'll do a close when we're done, and just don't hang up so I don't have to call you back to thank you for doing this after you've hung up.
Okay, so I think I've only done live stuff with you guys. So tell me one more time what you want.
Okay. No, basically what I'm going to do, since this is tape, is I'm gonna cut a fake intro. Yeah, it's like,
okay.
And so I'm going to welcome you. So basically, the only thing that's different is that we're just going to do stuff that's on tape that you've done live with us, and then when I'm done, I'm just going to say, thanks, and then you thank me, and then basically the recording will be done, and you're free and clear.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so here we go in 3. Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1, and it's time to catch up with an old friend who has a new address. And, Matt, first and foremost, thanks for hanging out with us here. Where exactly are you at this very moment?
Well, it's good to hear your voice again. At this very moment, I am sitting in a townhouse looking over at the beach in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
So first thing, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. For those that might be just joining the story, you became part and parcel to Soccer Down Here listeners with your time in Midland-Odessa, Texas, with the run that you had for the NPSL championship. Let's go back there, and what are your fondest memories of that time and your work in the NPSL?
Yeah, I have so many great memories especially from that season in the national, championship run we tried to make, lost in the final. But I'll tell you, one of my best moments was still playing in Detroit in front of 7,000 or 8,000 people there. I think it was one of those matches nobody expected us to win, and I don't think the NPSL even expected us to win. And we went into a very, very hostile environment, and we were luckily able to keep the boys nice and relaxed and won in penalty kicks there. So that still goes down as one of my most favorite moments in my coaching career, bar none.
So then how did you get from Midland-Odessa, Texas, to staring at a beach and sand and, I imagine, blue water from a townhouse in the Turks and Caicos? How did this go down?
Right. So, I got several things came up after that summer. So I ended up, obviously going back to San Antonio with St. Mary's University, where I was, employed for, on my 10-month contract. And then some job openings came open. So I had some interviews with, Division I schools and a USL interview. And then I was a finalist for the U.S. Virgin Islands national team job. And I was in a final 2 for that and ended up, not being selected for it. But through that process, I had met some pretty neat people that have really helped steer, my career in the right direction. And I was actually, sitting in San Antonio one day, and I got a call from a friend of mine and said, "Hey, I want to let you know I just dropped your name into Turks and Caicos, and the FA wants to speak with you." So, at that point I thought, well, that would be awesome. But I wasn't sure if I'd hear from her or not. And then, oddly enough, they called the very next day, and we had a good telephone interview. And through that interview, we found out that, I had coached Billy Forbes, who's the national team captain here in Turks and Caicos. I coached him when I was at Lubbock Christian several years ago, and actually helped Billy with his first professional contract. And I ended up hitting it off with the FA really well. So they flew me in. I did several presentations for them, and it's it's kind of how I got rolling down here. It's a unique job. It's a small country, and a smaller size federation. So they have some unique unique needs, and part of that is being able to help them place players off island, et cetera. And I just felt like we were a good fit for each other, so here I am.
Have you always imagined yourself or pictured yourself? I mean, because coaches view themselves in different ways. How do you view yourself? Do you view yourself as a builder, or what do you look at when you look at your persona as a coach and as an individual on the touchline and on the practice pitch? How do you view yourself as a coach?
Yeah, I think that's developed. I mean, it's been such a whirlwind for me. You got to remember, a little over 7 years ago, I was, teaching high school and involved with a youth club and owned a business and out in Bakersfield on the West Coast, and just made this decision that I wanted to go chase my dream and really walk away from everything and do what I love. So it's been such a whirlwind for me. There's times when I don't even have time to really sit down and think about. But what my I guess my specialty has become is just coming in and turning around underperforming programs. I've just had a lot of luck with that. I turned, my first job was a NAIA job in Arizona that was one of the worst in the NAIA, and within a couple of years we had them up into the top 20 in the nation. And then I moved into Division II in Lubbock, and took over a losing program there, and then moved back to the West Coast at San Francisco State. And I took over arguably the worst program on the West Coast. They hadn't had a winning season in 20 years, and we did well there. And then the cost of living just caught up with us in San Francisco. We just couldn't afford to live there. So I had a couple other opportunities, and we decided to take the one in St. Mary's and San Antonio. Took over another team coming off a losing season, and turn them around. So I don't know. I've just kind of made a name for myself going around, going into programs and finding a way to do more with less, and find a way to get, some things done that people kind of didn't think that could get done. And it was the same experience in Midland. When I was offered the job in Midland, they had back-to-back seasons where they only had 3 wins. So it was arguably at that point one of the the poorest teams in the PDL before they switched to the NPSL. But yeah, I guess at some point you realize you got a knack for, doing something that a lot of people struggle with. And, that's where my career has taken me. Now, when I picture myself, it's not necessarily what I want to do. I'm at a point in my life where I don't want to keep chasing jobs down every, year or two, every 2-3 years. I'm ready, to sit and build. I want to get to a point where I can get into a place and really, get a federation or a franchise or a university that really gets behind me and is really behind the sport. And I'd like to get somewhere that's ultra supportive and build something special. That's really what I think I'd like to do in my next part of my career.
So when you look at Turks and Caicos, you mentioned unique situations, unique challenges, and part of that is player placement. In looking at the international rankings, currently they're below 200. What other unique things are you having to tackle here?
Yeah, so I knew walking into this, when I accepted the job, they were actually, literally worse in the world, right? So they were tied for the lowest spot in FIFA rankings. And so the new initiative with Concacaf, with the Nations League, really changed things for this region, especially for a lot of the small islands that, haven't had the capability to travel and get, meaningful matches. Turks hadn't played a real meaningful match since, about 2015. So it had been about 3 years. And you can imagine what it's like in a program when the players dwindle and there's not a ton of development going on. And so they made the decision that they wanted to invest in it and bring somebody in that could help with the various facets of what this job in particular takes. So they've been very open and honest with me with the draw that they got in this first qualifying round for Nations Leagues. Very difficult draw. We probably drew 2 or 3 legitimate Gold Cup qualifying contenders with Cuba in Guyana. So from day one, they said, look, they really wanted me to come in here and lay a foundation for the future and develop the player pool, develop some discipline in the program, work on getting we have a very young player pool here, getting some of those players placed in the States and various places where they can develop. And they, they wanted some things like, they want to grow their kind of footprint in the islands itself. So, I've been tasked with some pretty specific things. I think it's easy for somebody to go in and say, oh, you lost 11-0 and 8-0, but you got to remember in the big picture, we have a nation of under 30,000 people and haven't played meaningful games in 3 years, and it's a big job. But I'm real happy with what's going on the island. I've got probably one of the strongest locker rooms I've had in some time, and our player pool is growing. And at some point next year, when we get grouped in the Nations League with similar sized nations and federations, I think there's going to be some great results for us.
So when you look at the next X number of years and you're looking for a progression, can you afford to even look at it as a 2, a 3, a 5-year plan, or is this something where there's a certain amount of immediacy to it where you're looking for improvement and then you get into league and then you try to improve from that? I mean, what's the mental timetable to get things where you're looking to get them?
I mean, are we, talking about my career as a coach, or where do I want to get this particular team?
Where do you want to get this particular team? Let's take it. I guess we'll take it eventually both ways, but this particular side, what are you looking for Turks and Caicos?
So my presentation to the federation, I laid out kind of my plan for the entire cycle. So we have 4 games in this cycle. We have September, October, November, and then March of 2019. So I laid some pretty specific ideas down for them of where I wanted to be by the time we get through March of 2019. So going into the next year's cycle, I think there's going to be some pressure to get some results. And, I'm fine with that because I think the results are going to come. I'm really happy with what's going on here. So long term, I would say, I would be looking to potentially, finish this cycle up on my contract. I would like to stay here for another cycle in a second contract if that evolves and things can be worked out between both parties. And then from there, I don't know. I don't know I don't know where my career is going to take me or what's going to show up. I have a young family in the States, so I've been away from them quite a bit when I'm commuting here. So I think as a family and with my wife and small kids, we have to figure out what's going to work for, best for us in the future. And, hopefully that's at the international level or the professional level, because that's what I aspire to do.
So then I guess the last question that I've got, and thanks for hanging out with us here to do another 1v1 with us. When you look at the next markers coming up, what would you like to let everybody know about what's going on there in the Turks and Caicos that they would not have initially known? And so I guess this would be the time to cut your promo. It's like, okay, what would you like to put out there into the public consciousness about what's going on down there, your part in it, and how things are looking to grow and improve?
For me, I'll go back to every team I've been involved with. I always feel like it's my job to develop and show, young men the pathway. And I'm really proud of what I've been able to do with my staff here. So I have a volunteer assistant that comes in, and then we have a satellite staff that I've built just because the funding's not there to bring it in. So I have 3 guys that are on U.S. soccer staff there in the States that help me, put this plan together. But I really am really proud of the plan we put together, because what people don't see is that, I have a bunch of young men in this program that are now, they've changed their diet. They are getting fit. These guys are getting together on their own and training when I'm not on the island. They're getting together and training by themselves when I'm on the island. They're sending us notes that they, for the first time in a long time, they'll feel very inspired. We had, nearly 1,000 people at our first home match. So for me, it's just more about, people. I still love the fact that I'm able to, try to make a difference in people's lives. And that's for me what this is all about. So I just want people to know that, we lost our last game 8-0, but what people don't see is just how much hard work goes into that. It's an incredible amount of hard work. And these guys are, working incredibly hard every day that are part of this national team. And that's something, that people don't see within the score lines. And it's a difficult spot because, somebody asked me the other day, well, how are you going to fare against, say, Cuba? Well, Cuba's got 12 million people, 13 million people in their island. We have under 30,000, so I always relate that to, look at the purchasing power. If you have $13 million in the bank compared to $30,000 in the bank. So your purchasing power and, it's just different worlds. So yes, we went out and lost 11-0, but it was the first cap for most of these guys, got their first international cap. Most of them, we had a handful of guys that had never been on an airplane before. We had guys, 95% of my team is in the service industry here. So they're bartenders, they're waiters, they're working at local hotels, and they do this because they love it. They don't get paid a dime, and there's not a ton of perks at the national level here. So I guess, at the end of the day, I just would like people to know that it's a really inspiring story behind the scenes, that these guys are going out and playing against professionals and professional staffs and, big countries, and they're, we're doing everything we can to compete and get better every single day.
Matt Barnes, head coach of the Turks and Caicos Islands Football Association, here for a Soccer Down Here 1v1. And we will definitely be keeping an eye on what's going on down there. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for answering the phone. Thanks for giving us the update. It's good to catch back up with you, and you know that we'll be banging on your door as things continue down there. Thanks for hanging out with us here at SDH.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys so much, and just thanks for the call.
And there you go. That's it.
Okay, thanks, man.
Yeah. This is a hell of a story. And
yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like, I did a big interview with the NPSL a couple of weeks ago, and I just don't think people realize, like, man, I was, teaching special ed 7 years ago and owned a commercial cleaning company. And, I grew up playing by myself in Bakersfield and, getting called a communist for playing. It's just such a crazy story when I actually have time to sit down and think about it. So it's been as you can imagine, it's been an insane ride for me.
Well, then let me ask you this. I'm trying to figure out how to do something larger, because as the more you and I talked here, I want to try to figure out how to do something larger as this story goes. So I'm going to put my thinking cap on, and I'll talk to Jason and Jarrett and figure out if there's something that can be done, maybe something with the Fed. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, maybe something, almost like a docuseries or something like that. Just trying to figure out how to pull it off, I think, is the large issue because of you being there and us being here.
Yeah, we've thought about it. I started so long story short, my best friend's a graphic artist, very good, one of the best on the West Coast, and his son's on a team with a Hollywood producer, and they had talked and said, hey, man, like, this is a really cool story. You should have Matt start, something to let people follow his journey. So that's where we started. Chris helped me with it, but we started the idea of blue collar footballer. So I don't know if you've even seen any of my stuff, but I've created, some a social media site based around kind of the core of who I am, which is, blue collar. And it's something we discuss. Everybody that's played for me relates to being blue collar.
Right.
So we just started a blue collar. It's at Blue Collar Footballer. So I've tried to chronicle some of the things going on, but I would. Gary Moody had talked to me about maybe writing on some type of blog, or even. But long story short, I'd be really interested in doing something like that.
Okay.
So I'm pretty passionate about it, and I think it's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah. And I'm trying to. No, that is not what I wanted to do. Not with the hashtag. Okay, so, all right, so blue collar footballer, is that what it is on Twitter, or?
It's Twitter. It's I've probably done more on Instagram and Facebook.
Got it.
But I usually, Gary was just telling me last week after we did our interview, he said for soccer in particular,
I should
probably start doing some more Twitter stuff.
Okay, so. Found Twitter and the last entry of November 5. Okay. Okay, blue collar footballer. All right, got it. Yeah, because all right. So I'm just trying to, because the more you mentioned it, I'm thinking book, documentary series, all those kinds of things that was running through my head. I'm just trying to figure out the execution of it.
Yeah, so I would be interested in talking with you about that. And it's hard for me to talk too about the future, because it's like the federation just came back and offered me full time, but it's just not a good offer. So I'm stuck in this weird spot in my life where it's like, okay, well, I probably would be in my best interest to do this for another year, but it's not going to afford me to move my family here. So what do I, it's just a lot going on. I just got an offer from an NPSL team, a contender that, I probably could have time to go do that this summer maybe. So I'm just lots of stuff I'm just trying to figure out now, but
okay.
It's tell you what, man, it's been a hell of a journey.
No doubt.
Oh.
But yeah, I want to try to figure out if there's a way logistically to do more.
Okay.
And
yeah, sure.
You down there putting all this stuff together, it's a hell of a story.
Yeah, you talk to Gary Moody much, or?
Yeah, Gary was the one who gave the idea to do the story. I might have to do a follow-up with him about the more in-depth material.
Yeah, because he said some of the same things. He's even trying to talk to the federation down here about, just they don't do a very good job of even promoting. Like he said, they didn't even release my story when I got hired, but they didn't even know. I was like, damn.
I'm reading the release from the Sun newspaper down there from September 7th when you were named, and that was how I knew about Lubbock Christian and all that stuff. So TCIFA Marketing Communications Coordinator Candia Ewing, all that stuff with a couple of quotes.
So she does most of it, but they just don't do much, to be honest, and it's not. It was like pulling teeth to get the Secretary General to talk to Gary about, giving a couple comments for the article, and just interesting though. But I think if I can do well, I think something bigger could be on the horizon. I do think that. I'm pretty proud of what we've done in a short time here.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen anything, but we don't have a goalkeeper, so I have right now a 17-year-old kid that. Well, we only have one goalkeeper in the pool that's active, and he's horrible. Like, arguably the worst goalkeeper in the world at the international level. So, the Cuba game, you could argue probably should have been 5 or 6 mil, and the Guyana game probably, 3 to 4 mil. So we're not as bad as it looks on paper. We just have not been able to solve this problem yet, but we're working on it.
Okay. What's the best email for you these days?
Probably just my regular home one. It's BARNO 1515
at Gmail.
At Gmail.
Got it. Okay.
Yes, sir. Barno 1515.
Got it. All right, so I'm sending you an email just to give you my email address again. It's the osgnelson at Gmail.
Okay.
And that way, if there's anything that you want to do to just keep me in the loop information-wise when it comes to schedule, those kinds of things, just so I know your timetables.
Okay.
And, yeah, see, this whole thing just got my brain working really hard. Thanks for hanging out. And
Yes, sir. Appreciate
thanks for
it.
doing stuff. And I will definitely keep going back and forth with you on email, and we'll keep putting our head together and figure out what we can do here. Because, like I said, it's a hell of a story on a bunch of different levels.
Awesome. I appreciate that very much.
All right. Be good and go get some dinner.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Yes, sir.